everybody, what's going on? I am Jamie Dawn, your evolutionary, revolutionary astrologer, bringing you your celestial wisdom. And this happens to be for the week of February 15th. I'm going to go all the way through the 21st, second. We'll just see where the energy lines up for us. But we're coming off of a full moon in Leo. Hopefully, you guys aren't feeling too hungover from that full moon. I know that many Aquarians and Leos were feeling the effects of that and are still kind of questioning, like, did I really get what I wanted out of this? Did I really let go of the things that maybe I was super attached to and it was creating too much conflict in my internal world that now I'm feeling not quite sure where to go from here. One of the things that I've witnessed with a lot of people is that, and myself included, is that we have a tendency to get very attached to ideas. And then when we are working with letting them go, there is a grieving that comes in. I was working with someone the other day and they were talking about how their child has gone off to college and they're missing that energy that their child brought to them. And one of the ahas that they had was, oh my gosh, I think I was just more of the illusion of their energy around and the idea of them always being around, because as senior, they weren't really around, they were off driving and being with their friends and all that. And it's like, oh, I have to let go of the idea that I'm not their primary person in their life. And so we work through some of that grieving process. That's something that's certainly up for a lot of people. That reminds me. So I decided a couple weeks ago that I was going, because for me, it's important to have credentialing. And as many of you know, I am a certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. And so one of the themes that has come up so much in a lot of my sessions have been grieving and going through grief. And there's been, loss of all different types, and each one is very unique and different and that sort of thing. And so I am now officially a certified grief coach, and that allows me to be able to offer my services and my gifts in a way that feels for me more solid. So, yeah, if that's something that you feel you want to work through, that you would like to go through the process, feel free to reach out, jamiedawn.com, and I would be happy to set something up with you. And all right. So last week we had the Queen of Wands. I thought that was so appropriate for our card, especially with it being a full moon in a fire sign of Leo. And hopefully you guys had a chance to meditate on it, maybe see some manifestation from the way in which she brings herself out and has this great confidence that takes action and inspiration and finds a lot of creative passion, and that hopefully you pursued and were able to speak your truth in a way that you were able to pursue the things that allowed you to have what your heart truly desires in that next stage of evolution. Well, this week, I've got my cards. Sorry, I didn't have them last week. I'd forgotten them at my house, and I recorded my video at my beloved's house, and so I'd forgotten my cards. But I had already pulled the card for the week. So now I have my cards again, and this week's card happens to be, okay, the Knight of Swords. And as we know, with the Knight of Swords, if you're familiar with this at all, it's represented by a masculine male knight carrying a sword. And we know the swords are about the mind, the mental energy. And also, I would say swords to me are about the truth, because the sword we often refer to as a double edge. It has a double edge to it, and truth has a double edge. If it pierces and it says, hey, this is truth, yay, it set me free, but I'm not always comfortable with what I heard, right? And so the Knight of Sword appears that we're highly driven, we're ambitious, we're ready to take action, especially after this full moon, and that challenges and difficulties may be ahead, but we've got a plan in place, or we feel more confident. Hopefully, that's that Leo energy. Maybe we feel more confident because we now are speaking truth to ourselves, or we found truth, or we've got our plan in place to be able to drive our actions forward and to not have to overthink things. And I mention that because we are going to have Mercury squaring off Jupiter. And with Mercury now in Pisces, which I'll talk about, squaring off with Jupiter in Gemini, our minds have a tendency to overthink, maybe over communicate. And with that square, there's a challenge between our intuitive hits and then what we're thinking or what we're wanting to share intellectually, right? And one of the things I often say is that, and if you're familiar with this, is that intuition doesn't have logic behind it. Logic comes in once we get that intuitive hit to try and make sense of what that intuition is telling us. So the Knight of Swords is really about taking quick action and not overthinking something, that we want to be assertive in what we want, as speaking up, asking for what we need, what we want. I think the biggest thing is that we're just going to have to be careful that we don't I'll say speak before we think, but again, it's not about overthinking. It's more about being intentional with the way we use our words. It's a good reminder that our words create the worlds in which we live and that we can manifest through our speech. Now, as we can kind of carry that energy of the Knight of Swords into the week, Mercury is now in Pisces. And when it enters this sign, our dreams can become more vivid. So pay attention to those. I can tell you, my dreams have been wackadoodle. I mean, so it's like the usual suspects are in my dreams, but what is happening with us is a very strange thing. So as much as I love dream analysis, I've chosen not to analyze these dreams as much as just sit with them and see if a theme or a pattern shows up. The other thing with Mercury in this sign of Pisces, because remember, Mercury rules our thoughts, our communication style, is that we have a tendency to be very all-inclusive, if you will, in Pisces. We want everyone and everything is welcome. We want the magical. We want the fantastical world. There's a tendency with Mercury and Pisces that we could also maybe deceive a little bit or embellish some things, because we're dreaming, we're imagining, we're creating. It's a great storytelling place, So if you need to sell something, tell a good story. If you want to get people engaged and behind a particular vision or idea that you have and that you want to put in place, this is a perfect way, a perfect sign in which Mercury swims through, being a water sign, that can give you that extra boost when it comes to maybe selling somebody on this particular idea. Because remember, in sales, it's really about relationship building as well as emotional connection. People tend to buy things on emotional impulse or because they feel connected to it, they need it, right? And so if you're telling the story, this is why you need this particular thing, and they're like, oh, I can see that, yeah. Oh, and then we kind of go off into this dream world. It's like, oh yeah, I just bought this and I don't know why. There's that tendency there as well. Another con to Mercury and Pisces, miscommunication is possible, because we might have trouble staying on track, right? So we may start down one subject matter and end up in another, and it can get confusing, maybe for ourselves or for the audience. So it's important to allow ourselves to take a step back and remember, be intentional with what we're saying. Oftentimes, our emotional body can also take over with Mercury and Pisces, and then it may be difficult sometimes to put words into what we're feeling. There's a lot of this high sensitivity that can come in, and our mind is trying to make sense of it, and it doesn't always. So there is a little bit of that. And then to add to it, the sun also is in Pisces and moving into Pisces, and that happens on the 21st. And so when the sun is in Pisces, it's a time where it's easier for us to follow our intuition, follow our instincts, allow time for dreaming, for rest, all these Piscean things. But the escapism can be a real thing too, where we're ready to just get away and maybe ignore some of the responsibilities that we've been having. Because remember that with the sun in Capricorn and Aquarius, both ruled by Saturn. Traditionally, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So there's that heavy responsibility energy to it. Now with the sun in Pisces, we're looking for a lightness. So we're looking for an escape from all that responsibility, heaviness. So some keywords with the sun transit through Pisces is compassion. So maybe we feel more compassionate towards ourselves and towards others. We find ways to be of great service. We feel more spiritually guided, maybe more sensitive than usual, dreamy, as I mentioned, creative, because Pisces is also the zodiac sponge, if you will. It's the culmination of all the 11 signs before into this 12th sign of Pisces. And so it's got a little taste of everything that has been happening. This technically to me is the end of the year. And this is from a zodiacal standpoint. So here I am in the month of end of February into March, reflecting on what has happened in the last year. Look how far we have all come in the last year, and look how far we have to go as well. And so, taking time to tap into that moments of rest and respite to reflect and to spend some time dreaming of what's that world that I ultimately want to create. Yeah. And what experiences do I want to create for myself in the next year? And then how do I go about doing that and having great compassion in ways that that can benefit myself, it can benefit others. This is also a wonderful time for random acts of kindness to occur. And that, of course, releases dopamine. It makes us better people. It just feels good. It puts us in a state of gratitude. This is, I would say also, we're looking at how do I bring heaven to earth? How do I take all this imaginal realm, all this spiritual, magical nature, and put it into something tangible? And that's where our practices can come in, and looking for opportunities for being of service or for doing really good things for one another. I mentioned Mercury squaring off with Jupiter. So Mercury and Pisces will square off with Jupiter this next week. And our intuition, dreamy ideas kind of collide with that curiosity and that thirst for intellectual knowledge, right? So I mentioned the intuition and the logical kind of colliding when there's a square. So the challenge is to balance these profound intuitive insights that we're getting with the desire to communicate all these different subject matters. So it's going to be a little difficult during those couple of days to be succinct. So if you're trying to sell something and you're creating this beautiful story around it, it may be difficult for people to understand exactly what you're trying to sell or what action you're trying to get them to take, because you're all over the place. So ground, gather, pause, organize, get yourself into a single focus if this is a situation that you're in. There's also a tendency to overthink or over communicate our feelings. And when that happens, especially high intuitives, we know that our emotions can take over and create this wonderful storyboard that has been happening, the telenovela, as we say. Oops, I'm almost hitting my hot water here. I'm gonna take a sip. I've had this thing. See, this is me going off on a tangent. I've had this thing where I wake up and I have hot water with some lemon in it every day, and it just resets my system. Feels really good. Anyways, that's a new habit that I took on back at the full moon in the new moon. It was the new moon in Aquarius. Anyways, so I was talking about our emotions and how they can take over and that sort of thing and create all these stories. So remember, our emotions are only one piece of the human experience, and that we're here to master. That doesn't mean that we're beating ourselves up because we let our emotions take over, or it's like, oh, I can't feel anything, I have to compartmentalize. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you feel it, but then you partner with that emotion to say, okay, here's my intellect. What do I know to be true? Let me ground it into my physical body and take some actions that come from a well-rounded wholeness place versus I'm pissed off, therefore I'm going to go yell at my spouse kind of energy. Mercury is going to trine Mars. So Mercury in Pisces makes this trine or harmonious aspect to Mars in Cancer. And Mars is still retrograde. It will continue to be retrograde for just a little bit longer. And what we're doing when Mars and Mercury make this trine is we can channel our intuitive nature and this fighting spirit of Mars in a way that can be supportive of others. So we can take these emotional feelings, these ideas or intuitive hits that we get, and put them into a place that says, how can me fighting for something, not against something, standing up for, fighting for something can be a benefit. Maybe there's somebody who doesn't have the skills to communicate what they need. So I'm going to help them do that. I'm going to communicate with them, for them, that sort of thing. Our emotions can guide our actions during that little space and time when Mercury is making this trine to Mars. And so one thing we have to be careful of is using it as manipulation tactics to get what we want. However, I do say manipulation isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes manipulation is exactly what we need, like a potter with clay, molding and shaping, manipulating the clay into this beautiful vase. And so if we're manipulating, and again, intention drives everything. If we're manipulating a situation, we're shaping it in a way that could be of benefit for everyone involved, then manipulation is not necessarily a bad thing. Do watch out for a little passive aggressiveness during that time as well. So it may be a little difficult if you want something and another person isn't giving it to you, or the universe isn't giving it to you. You could, have outbursts and anger and all of that, and kind of pout, like, throw a temper tantrum, pouting, that sort of thing. That doesn't always bode well for people to actually want to give us our way. So we do have to watch out for that. But for the most part, with Mercury and trining Mars, we could find ourselves extremely intuitive, and being in that state would be a wonderful way to meditate, tap into the unseen realm, and use it, like I say, share those hits, those insights with others that may need to benefit from it. Okie dokie. I hope that this helps. Oh, one other thing I'll mention, just because I know it's something that is up for a lot of us, and that is, of course, relationships. And this coming week should have some very sweet moments to connect with those that you care about, or if you're single and you're looking for love, this is actually a great week to get out there and mingle and meet somebody who maybe has a more spiritual nature, a gentler side, someone who maybe really stimulates the intuitive nature inside of you, or stimulates that more compassionate self. So, all right, you guys, I hope this helps. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and come find me at 12listen and jamiedawn.com. I look forward to connecting with you. Have a great week.